Good morning, everyone. We'll just give everybody about another minute to get connected and settled, and we're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Actually, I think we're good. Everybody got connected really quickly. All right, so I guess we'll jump right in. Thank you so much for coming to join us this morning for this presentation on academic culture in Canada, presented by my colleague Emily from International Student Services. Before we get started with the presentation, I just wanted to say hello from my team at Campus Life and Engagement. So we're working with a lot of partners this summer to deliver a lot of webinars to support you as you prepare for your arrival to McGill this fall. We're really excited to get to see you in these webinars and then to greet you on campus at orientation. I did want to start a little bit by letting you know what we're here to do for you at Clay. Actually, Emily, if you could go to the next slide, the Clay slide, we'll start with that one. Thank you so much. So just to let you know all the kinds of support that we'll have available to help you prepare for your McGill journey this fall. So my team at Campus Life and Engagement, our goal is really exactly that. So it's to help connect you to resources, to community, and really have a good start to your your time at McGill. So first of all, we have a great team, including our Ask McGill student navigators, who you can actually contact them to ask questions, and then you'll see them on campus as you're coming this fall to your first classes, to orientation. They'll be stationed around campus to help you navigate when you get lost, to help answer your questions. And also our team is available for booking. So if you have questions about just kind of navigating your journey as a new student at McGill, you can go to our website at mcgill.ca/getready and you can book an appointment with our team. We're also here to provide you with connections to one another. So one way that we do that is through mentoring programs, notably our new Student Buddy program. If you haven't already signed up for this program, we highly recommend it. So it's a program where you can be paired with an upper year student mentor. If you're a graduate student, you'll be paired with a graduate student mentor. And if you're an undergraduate student, with an undergraduate student mentor. And that student will be in a similar program to you and will be able to kind of answer your questions and guide you from a student perspective. So it's a great program. It gives you a sort of a first person to know on campus and even before, because we're matching on a rolling basis throughout the summer. So definitely check that out if you haven't yet. And then we're also here to plan a lot of events and activities for you, including these webinars, but also social events, orientation events, community initiatives and fairs. So we'll be here to help you get connected to all that McGill has to offer. You can check out everything we have on offer again at our website at mcgill.ca/clay is our team's website, but also mcgill.ca/getready, which is our dedicated website for new students. And do follow us on Instagram and Facebook to get updates on what we've got going on. So now, without further ado, I'll just explain a little bit how this presentation will go this morning. So just to make sure that everybody, you'll note that you've been muted. Your mic has been muted and your camera is off. We are recording this presentation today, so that's really just to ensure a sort of a clean, smooth recording that you'll be able to refer to later if you have questions. If you do have any questions, we actually have a Q&A for your questions. So you might see at the top of your screen, there's a little Q&A button. You can pop your questions in the Q&A and then we'll answer some of them as we go, but a lot of them will take sort of in the question and answer period at the end of the session. And then the slides from this presentation will be shared with you. All of this will be available on our website, mcgill.ca/getready. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Emily. Thank you, Emily.
Oh, I'll just also add one more thing, that as Annie mentioned, the peer mentoring program, we also have a program called First Friends, and it is a way to connect with other new students in your world region before you come, because we know that, again, this is not an immigration webinar, but I do work in international student services, and we know that it can be stressful waiting for your immigration documents, and it can help to connect with other new students nearby. You can even make travel plans together. And we send that information out periodically throughout the summer with our pre-arrival webinars. Annie, I don't know if you properly introduced yourself, but I will introduce myself and say that my name is Emily. Though I am Canadian, I worked in the United States at 2 different universities in Illinois and New York, and now I'm back here at McGill. I did my undergrad and my graduate studies here at McGill, so I've now experienced McGill's academic culture plus academic culture in the US. And yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the differences that I've noticed. And again, it's just kind of interesting perspective that I have been both an undergrad and a grad at McGill. And there are definite differences. And one of those, I'll just, because this doesn't really have any part to do with this presentation, but one of the big differences that I felt at McGill, in my undergrad, I had classes all over campus, and I could just stand in the middle of campus and I'd see someone I knew. Whereas in graduate school, I tend to have all my classes and my coursework in one spot. So I would, know everybody in that one spot. But the rest of campus, I'd be like, oh, I don't know anybody because I don't know anybody in the Faculty of Engineering or in the Faculty of Science. However, there are 2 lovely student unions, the Student Society SMU building on McTavish and the Thompson House, a nice hangout spot for graduate students to meet each other from all the different faculties. And there's, trivia nights and places to meet up, and that's sort of like the student hub, if you will, to have that non-academic experience on campus. But let's talk about academics today. First, we want to acknowledge that McGill is located on land that has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. McGill honors, recognizes, and respects these nations as the traditional stewards of the lands and waters on which we meet. And you'll see this slide in many different presentations. And I like to say, if you're coming to Canada, or as you come to Canada, to explore the First Nations and the Indigenous cultures. In Montreal, we have a First Peoples House on campus. There'll be a powwow in September. There's also an Indigenous Studies program here at McGill. So if you're an undergrad, you can take courses to learn more about the lands and waters in which we meet. And yeah, so that is something that I recommend if you have that opportunity. So I noticed that Annie had just mentioned that she turned off the chat. So the chat feature does not work. And so I was going to say that I would not switch the slide until people chatted in what they think academic culture is. But because we have no chat, I will talk it out. So if I were to brainstorm, I would say, what is culture? I might think it's language, or I might think it's, I don't know, the different aspects that make us who we are. That could be the speed in which we talk. It could be more than language. It could be a set of norms that make our group of people who we are. So we often refer to stereotypes, like we say, maybe that Canadian people are very polite. And I won't go over the stereotypes that people think of other cultures, but you could say that there are definite stereotypes for McGill students versus Concordia students or UDM students. And so throughout this presentation, I want to talk about some of the pieces that make up academic culture here at McGill and in Canada versus other countries, or other, even versus high school. So if you think about language, for instance, McGill has its own language, if you will. Every university I've ever been at has a set of acronyms that only insiders know. So, I might mention the SMU building, or PGSS, or GPS if I'm talking to graduate students. This is the Student Society of McGill University, or the Post-Graduation Student Society, or Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies. These are some of the many acronyms that you will start to learn, especially in orientation. And by, November, everything will just seem very natural to you. I mentioned before, academic culture can be a set of norms. One thing that I experienced very much, and I noticed and I observed this as a student, is that McGill very much has a work hard, play hard mentality. Students are very academically focused, but they also know how to have a good time on the weekends. I would say if anyone's taking part in Frosh Week, you'll notice that there's definitely a party hard attitude as well. And then people really get down and they study and they focus on their academics. Another huge difference that I've noticed between high school and McGill and also the United States versus McGill, or Canada, I should say, is the grading. I remember when I was in high school, people said to expect sort of that freshman 15, that you might gain 15 pounds and that through the cafeterias, and that your grades would come down 15%. Similarly, when my husband taught in the United States, he was giving out 90s. At McGill, that's very rare to get a 90. A B here at McGill is about a 70%. And so people might see a 70 and go, oh, I'm used to getting 95s. But really, a 70 is a 3.0, whereas at many American universities, a 3.0 might be an 85. So don't be worried when you see a lower number. It's the percentage really that matters. And again, my husband would get in trouble when he went to actually Concordia University that he graded too high. Every year he was told that he had to grade lower because that's the way here in Canada. In fact, I know a lot of people here are very academic. You're here at this academic culture presentation, and it can be nerve-wracking to go from the best in high school or the best in your undergraduate university and to come here and you're no longer the top of your class. And that is normal. Not everybody here can be the top of your class. I remember a student in a history class got an 85, which is an A. That's a 4.0 throughout the semester. And on his last paper, he got an 85. And he went to the professor and said, could you give me a buffer? Could you give me, an 87 so that when I come into the exam, if I get an 83, I'm going to lose that 4.0. I'm going to go down to a 3.7. So it didn't work, and he did end up with an A. But that's another thing that I'm going to talk about is that students do try to negotiate grades with their professors here. When I was an undergrad, I got an 8 out of 10 or I think I got a 7 out of 10 on participation. And I went to the professor and I said, I was there every week. I participated in class, and she goes, oh, it looks like the TA just gave you a mark that matched your overall. And that one extra mark I got on participation, that 8 out of 10 that I ended up getting after I spoke with the professor, bumped my grade up from a 74 to a 75, which brought me from a 3.0 to a 3.3. And that, all those itty bitty little things can make a difference. I think I'm going down too far into memory lane. So let's go back into academic culture. You'll definitely see, no matter where you come from, high school or another undergraduate institution, grading is different at McGill than other parts of the world. So if we look at actions and interactions inside and outside of the classroom, when you arrive here and you start meeting people in the residences or at orientation, you're going to notice big differences in how we all speak. You're going to see that some people say soda versus pop. You're going to see that over 10,000 of our students here at McGill University are international students, coming from and also from all over Canada. We say things differently. We interact differently. I remember in my first year in the residences, I lived on the same floor as a girl from Russia, and I noticed that when she spoke, she really listened to me and took some time before she spoke. And I wasn't used to that because I'm a very quick interchanger when it comes to talking. And that's when I recognized that, oh, people are different than me. And it's something I think we do have Canadians here joining us today, that just to be observant of the different ways that we all carry ourselves. And that comes into the classroom and outside of the classroom as well. At McGill, you can absolutely participate in class. That may seem daunting if you have a class in Leacock 132, which is a classroom for about 650 people, but people do. You are absolutely encouraged to speak up in conferences and tutorials and Friday. I think Friday's the conference day for a lot of the people in the Faculty of Arts or in labs in science and engineering. You can speak with your professors and your TAs. In fact, it's encouraged. If your professors and TAs have office hours, you can ask them follow-up questions if you don't understand something. Don't be like me in my earlier days where I went to office hours and asked a question, but it was so clear that I hadn't done the readings. Make sure you do the work before you ask a question. The question should be about something you don't understand, not something you didn't read or didn't do. And also, you may not be thinking about this in your first year, but your professors can help write you letters for graduate school or even jobs. And if they don't know you, they can't say anything about you. You will be doing research, you'll be writing, you'll be submitting assignments. Make sure that you're following the rules of academic integrity, you're not plagiarizing. The library does offer classes on academic integrity and avoiding plagiarism. You're going to be doing group work with your classmates in most areas, especially Des Hôtels in the business school and engineering and science. Even in the Faculty of Arts, a lot of people study together and share notes. McGill really does have a collaborative culture when it comes to students and group work. And also, I should mention graduate school also. I found I never have done more group work than I ever did in my life than I did in graduate school. In terms of connecting and how to connect with your professors and your teaching assistants, the TAs are often graduate students. In the Faculty of Science, sometimes they may be upper year undergraduate students, and they can do everything from helping with instruction and evaluation to offering leading conference sections on Fridays, leading labs. And they're a great resource between students and the professors. They might be less intimidating because they're not your professor. They tend to be younger, and they also hold office hours, and they're a positive source of interaction. So one thing to think about is how culture influences teaching and learning. And if we look at this seesaw, this teeter-totter, if we will, looking at high and low power distance relationships, it can also affect how you interact with professors, TAs, and each other. So when there's a low power distance, the professor and students are equals. You don't have to be intimidated by them. Disagreement is fine. You can negotiate grades. It's more democratic. Versus a high power distance relationship, the professor is the authority and they're the ones who know everything. Do not disagree with your professor. By respecting them, you accept them, and all the decisions are made only by the professor. So I would say that McGill leans more towards a low power distance relationship. However, bear in mind that many of our professors are also international and come from every country, as many countries as our students come from. And different cultures have different power distance relationships. And so that can also influence a specific professor's relationship with their students. And so I would never say that McGill or Canadian academic culture is a monolith, that it is one way. And so the point of sharing this slide and some of our next slides is to show you that there are different ways of connecting with other human beings. But I would say as a general rule, not a general rule, a general piece of guidance is that you can absolutely ask questions and negotiate with your professors and your teaching assistants. And if you are a graduate student in this webinar today and you are a teaching assistant and maybe you come from a country where there's a higher power distance, to sort of challenge yourself to think about and watch the other professors and TAs that you work with to be a bit more flexible and to have these conversations that help everybody learn, including yourself. In the classroom, the professor can be seen as a guide, a facilitator. I mentioned before that my husband is a professor, and I see that he does not know everything in the world. He knows a lot about one aspect, but he is always learning from his students and from his peers. And to really remember that at the end of the day, your professors and teaching assistants are human, just like us. In conferences and labs, active participation is expected at the undergraduate level. If you are a graduate student joining us and you're working on your thesis, you are the one who's probably going to be poking your professors and your thesis advisors to help you, to assist you and support you. So you're expected to be involved with your own work. Another big difference between high school and university is that unfortunately, like the academic advisors here aren't going to be reaching out to you outside of orientation. If you need help, you need to ask for that help. And one beautiful thing about orientation is that they're going to give you all the information at the beginning, how and where to seek help and support, so that when you need it, you will know where to go. In the classroom, you can articulate your opinions freely, especially in conferences. You're expected to think critically, and you can absolutely disagree with a main point. You can take a completely different counter argument as long as you can support it with the readings and the evidence in the syllabus and in the course. And in fact, you can get excellent grades by taking a counter argument as long as it's well supported. Outside the classroom, people never know whether to call their professor by their first name or by Professor Love. My name is Emily Love. Sometimes the professors will introduce themselves, but generally I would avoid calling them by their first name unless you are asked to or given that opportunity. I mentioned before that it's really important to proactively seek guidance. At orientation, all of the student services will be tabling, and this is an opportunity for you to connect with staff, find out their faces, meet the librarians, and also connect with academic advisors at faculty orientation. You can absolutely share your work in progress with, say, your TA. I found that to be one of the most helpful parts of learning for me, and I didn't really think or know that I could share my work in progress until, unfortunately, my fourth year. But it was my fourth year that my grades really improved. And you're absolutely not expected to have all the answers. That's what learning is. It's learning how to find the answers and learning how to find your opinions. And it's also very important to take responsibility for your work. There's no blaming anyone else. If you get a great grade, it's all you. If you get a poor grade, again, it's probably all you. So, and also really I know everybody nowadays is using ChatGPT and AI, but to really be using your own words and to avoid plagiarism and to avoid cheating. I like this quote. I believe that our students can take advantage of the great willingness of faculty and other fellow students to act as mentors, relationships which are crucial for a student's solid academic development. And this quote came from the former director of the freshman program. So these are words that you can sort of be inspired by, that, don't be shy. I know that we have 50% of humans are introverts. Some people come from cultures that are less forthcoming. That being said, McGill really does encourage people to get outside their comfort zone and to speak up so that you can learn to formulate opinions and thoughts and arguments. So now this part that I'm going to go over about 5 or 6 slides, and we're going to talk about these different dichotomies in communication styles. You are not expected to memorize these. There will be no test, no exam, but it's just an interesting way to reflect on the people that you meet and how people communicate. So the first example that we're going to go over is low context versus high context speaking and communicating. So in a so I'm giving two sort of examples for each of these dichotomies. So in a low context communication style, someone might say, would you like to walk over to a restaurant or a patio for a beer? And in a I think I actually got these wrong. A high context, it says, let's head to a terrace for a cold one. What do you say? So the difference is that one of the conversations, they are being very specific. Let's go to a restaurant patio. That way everybody can understand what they're talking about. But if maybe you're not from Quebec, you don't know what a terrace is. And similarly, I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that McGill uses a lot of acronyms. So if you don't know what those acronyms are, you've lost that sense of context. You don't know necessarily what someone's talking about, and you might have to ask questions. This also comes up in cliques and friendships, that people use inside jokes, and an outsider might not understand that inside joke. And similarly, if you were a first-year student and went to, say, a graduate student seminar, you're probably not going to understand the material because you haven't built up the context for the level in which they're teaching at. And this is why you will see in upper year courses that there are prerequisites that you must take in order to build the understanding to get to that next level. So on a simple level, this can apply to communication with friends, but it can also apply to the way in which the academic culture of McGill works. And then we have direct versus indirect communication. And I think many people understand this already. In a direct conversation, a person might say, we need graphics in our presentation. Very straightforward. In an indirect conversation, someone might say, I'd suggest that we consider including graphics in our presentation. What do you think? And so someone who speaks directly says what they want. Someone who's indirect might not know what they want, and they put it to you, or they don't say clearly what they're looking for. And as a person who's been a student and now as a staff member, I can see that people who tend to be more confident with where they are in their studies or in their life tend to be more direct. People who don't know what they want sometimes will wobble when they're asking for help. They may not know that they even need help. And so I also have noticed that graduate students and upper year undergraduate students tend to also be maybe more direct in the academic setting and how they present their arguments, whereas as a new first year student at the undergraduate level, you may not yet have that confidence, and you may present your ideas perhaps more indirectly. So it's just something to think about. And it is also, I find that the way that we communicate, it develops over time. And so it's not, none of these things, there's no better or worse way. It's just something to notice, something to observe. And then there's self-enhancement versus self-effacement. So in self-enhancement, someone might say, oh, I'm really good at doing presentations. In fact, I'm happy to present. And someone who's self-effacing might say, oh, thank you for the compliment, but I'm not the best presenter. I'm sure you're better than me. So the second one tends to be more humble. The other one, self-enhancing, tends to be more confident, cocky, if you will. And this can also be a cultural difference as well. And one thing I will notice is that, or I've observed, is that, again, the newer we are to a subject, we might be more self-effacing. The more we know something, we tend to be more self-enhancing. Another thing to think about is if you're looking for a campus job or even an off-campus job. In Canada, we do what's the word? hirers, Annie's also a person who hires student workers, we do want people who can be self-enhancing, who can talk about their achievements, who can talk about the successes that they've had. An interview is not a place to be self-effacing. And I will also say that we have a career center at McGill, and they offer mock interviews. And it's a great way to practice learning how to be more self-enhancing. And that can help you with presentations. It can help you, especially if you're in the business school, you need to learn how to be more self-enhancing in those presentations. So again, it depends on the context and the faculty you're in, but overall, I will say that to a degree, in our society, whether at McGill or in Canada, there tends to be more rewards and mobility for people who can be self-enhancing to a point where we're not being, like, I'm the best person in the world, pick me. You have to be able, again, to support your arguments. And then my favorite is silence avoidance versus silence embracing. So someone who avoids silence would be like me, and they'll say, oh, I'm not sure. We can talk it over and discuss the details. Let's figure it out. Or silence embracing is someone who says, I understand. And they'll wait for you to give some more information. And as I mentioned before, with that girl on my floor from Russia, she was much more silence embracing. I am silence avoidance. And I will say that my colleagues who work in mental health at the Wellness Hub, they're fantastic at embracing silence, to let students speak. I was just at a webinar about this. I wish I could be more silence embracing, and that is a skill that I'm always trying to improve on myself. So again, these are just observations. They're differences. Neither is better or worse. They're just kind of who we are, but we can always try to adopt new ways and sort of meet in a middle ground. Moving on the first day of class, every class at McGill is going to go over the course syllabus. It's the guide to everything you need to know about the course requirements: exams, grading, office hours, the texts that you need to buy or to borrow from the library. This comic kind of gets at students who ask the professors questions that are clearly in the syllabus. So one piece of advice I would say is don't ask questions that are discussed in the syllabus. So asking when the office hours are or what books you need, it's in the syllabus. Professors really don't want to answer questions that are so clearly in the syllabus. But you're welcome to ask all sorts of questions. You can ask questions about the syllabus on the first day of class, but after that, it's in the syllabus. I mentioned before ChatGPT and cheating. McGill takes academic integrity as a very serious, what's the word? It's a serious offense if you cheat, and they take it very seriously. I say they, but who is McGill? Academic integrity is that moral code or the ethical policy of academia. And that includes values such as avoidance of cheating and plagiarism, while also maintaining our academic standards of honesty and rigor in research and academic publishing. So I'll just say don't cheat. And if you're tempted to cheat, you might get caught and there are consequences. Now, if you need help or information, please reach out if you are overwhelmed. There are your professors and the TAs, the teaching assistants as well. Annie and I both mentioned that there are mentor and support programs. And in fact, many departments and faculties have mentor programs as well. There's the McGill Writing Center, which is located in the library. This is a great place to go for help on learning how to write academic papers. They don't edit your papers, and they won't tell you, if it's good or bad. That doesn't really exist, but they will certainly help you to learn sort of the concepts, if you will, of writing academically. They also have classes that you can take as well. If English is not your first language, there's also some ESL classes that you can take either through the Writing Center or through the Continuing Studies program as well. The libraries are a great place of support. We have excellent online collections, books as well, of course, librarians to help you with your research and finding great resources and helping you use the databases to, I used to be a librarian, to enhance your results while also saving you time. There's an entire tutoring program, and certain faculties and departments also can connect you with tutors. There's wonderful counseling services. There's local wellness advisors located in each faculty, and also there's one for international students and there's one for graduate students. And it's a great first stop place to seek help and support, and they can also guide you to other support services. There's PGSS and SMOO, the two student societies. There will also be a, what do you call it? Annie, the word for all the clubs and organizations, activities night. It's a great way to get involved and meet people, because I find that it's the people at McGill that are going to shape your experience here, whether you meet them through orientation or through clubs or residents or through your classes. For graduate students, T-Pulse is a great way to learn how to be a TA, how to teach, and also there's teaching and learning services as well, which offer all sorts of classes for undergrads and grads, not just classes, but like one-off workshops on how to research, how to teach, how to avoid plagiarism, how to study for an exam, how to take multiple choice tests, and you'll receive emails, and also everything right now is on Instagram and Facebook as well. Another lovely quote, "You're not alone. Most students will face difficulties at some point in their studies. It's important to be proactive. Advisors, TAs, and professors are here to help, but we can't unless you come and ask us. If you don't ask us, it's going to be harder to help." And that is a really key point at McGill, is that, again, we cannot help you unless you ask for help, whether that's starting with a TA or a professor or coming to student services or your academic advisor or your department. Here are some QR codes. I love our little dinosaurs to some of the resources that may help you. Again, this is recorded, and I believe Annie will tell us at the end how to access the recording. Here are just some questions with some more QR codes, information about plagiarism, how to contact your academic advisors and tutors. People will ask, and I know that there's another webinar on my courses, but 95% of the time you can access the syllabus through my courses. And you can connect with International Student Services. We're online, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. And maybe people have been asking questions already, or maybe you have some questions, but I think I've got about 15 minutes left for questions. Annie would be able to tell if there are questions.
Yes, I can read out some questions. So the first question we have is, where can we find a course syllabus?
Haha, great question. So as I mentioned, on the first day of class, every professor will go over that course syllabus. Now, maybe you're asking, maybe you want to look at all the course syllabi before that first day of class. Annie, I'm actually not sure how to do that. And I don't know if all the professors even make the syllabus available much prior to that first day of class. Would you have more information than myself?
It's a good question. I think generally speaking, the syllabus is available in my courses. So once you're in the course, you should be able to go in and see the syllabus. But as to exactly the timeline of when the professors upload them, I'm not entirely sure either. It's a good question.
But it's easy enough to add drop courses in that first week of class. And, you add one, sneak a peek at the syllabus and then drop it and add a different one. That's sort of a sneaky way of going about it. However, do keep in mind that many classes do fill up, and it's hard to get into a class if the cap has been filled. But there's a lot of add drop happening in that first week. People will see the syllabus and they'll say, class not for me, out I go. And then they'll have to find something new. So definitely there's a lot of room to shop for the classes that best suit you in that first week.
Let's see, the next question is just about this presentation. How can we access it after we've concluded for today? So I'm just putting this information in the chat with the link, or in the Q&A rather, with the link, so you can easily find it. Let's see. And then I'll explain what I've put. So here we go. For grad students, you can actually find this directly in the applicant portal. So we'll be giving you the slides and the recording via the applicant portal, so where you registered for this this workshop. Then for undergrads and also for grads, if you prefer, you'll be able to go to our website, Get Ready. So mcgill.ca/getready/webinars. You'll see that within the next few business days, the recording and slides will be made available on that page as well. So that's a great question. Let's see, our next question: would meeting academic advisors and asking for advice be discussed in the general orientation for graduates or the faculty orientation? So that's a really good question. I can tackle part of that, and then Emily, you can tell me if you have anything else to add. So yes, in your faculty orientation, they will cover things like how to access advisors, who to ask your questions to, how to get support on different things. So yes, that will be something that will be covered in your faculty orientations. And this student asking particularly for the MAC campus, yes, so you'll have a lot of those things explained to you at the MAC orientation, and you'll also have a chance to kind of chat with people from your department at those events and get a sense of some of those answers as well. So it's a great question.
The other thing I would add is I find absolutely everything by Google. So I would just Google McGill Arts Advising, and you'll come to the Arts Oasis website, and that you'll see all the contact information, how to access walk-in hours, how to make an appointment, how to send an email.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. How is the process to get our McGill ID card? So let's see. I'll actually drop a link into the Q&A to answer this question. While I'm doing that, so we have a question: can I remove a class if I'm not in the add drop week? Do you want to answer that one, Emily, while I'm just looking for the instructions for the ID card?
Yeah, so I believe that you have 2 weeks in that add drop week. And after that, then there's certain deadlines. So then there's like, there's consequences. Actually, let me just find it, because there's withdrawals and hold on. I'm going to find that one.
Since I'm on the links, I can get that one too.
Okay. Yeah, I think the link would be more specific in terms of the important dates to know, but I would say without monetary or transcript consequences, I would say you really want to make sure that you're doing those add drops in those first 2 weeks in that add drop period. The other reason is that after that first class that goes over the syllabus, then the professor will jump into the course material. So if you're jumping into a class 2 weeks later, you're missing 2 weeks. That's sometimes 6 hours of lessons and readings that go with it. And so you're going to be behind, and you're going to have to spend more time catching up. I don't like to catch up personally, so I like to make my decisions usually by the end of that first week so that I don't fall behind. Yeah. That's my preference.
Yeah. And one thing I could add to that, I'm not sure which side of the add drop week you're actually asking about. So if you registered, you can now freely remove a class. So basically your Minerva from your registration date is open for both registering and dropping classes freely up until the add drop deadline. So we talk about that 2-week period of add drop because that's when students have the opportunity to try the class, and that's often when they'll make their decision if they keep it or not. So there's a lot of movement in that 2-week period, but you can actually drop a class as of now if you change your mind or something like that up until the add drop deadline. And then to Emily's point, so you can withdraw from a course with a refund. So it's not a drop, it's really a withdrawal up until September 6th. So you have about an additional week. And then you can withdraw without a refund until October 28th. So just so you know, I linked those and those as well. So that's at mcgill.ca/important dates/key dates. So I just linked that in the Q&A too.
And speaking of dates, I see that someone asked a question about orientation and dates. I'm also going to plunk in on that question the international student orientation programming and dates as well. For students who do arrive early, undergraduate students or graduate students after yours, we are offering like a meet and greet lounge, a place to connect with other international students. We'll have snacks, you can write a postcard, we'll mail it for you, and music and some upper year students as well. And we're having a huge kickoff welcome reception that's catered with performances on August 27th, which is the first day of class. So at the end of class, we welcome you to come to our welcome reception, and we will be sending out an email in August about our orientation program. So we hope you'll sign up. We hope to see you. And I always enjoy welcoming people after that sort of long immigration process. So it's nice to see that everyone will have made it and arrived safely after their flights too.
That's true. So yeah, I saw someone else ask about the orientation dates, but we did type those in the, if you look in the Q&A for the other published questions, you'll see my answer and Emily's answer with more information about those. So just kind of a big overview. The move-in weekend is August 23rd and 24th. And as Emily mentioned, there are meet and greet events for international students happening right on the Thursday and Friday just before, right, Emily? The 21st and 22nd? Yeah. And then orientation for undergraduate students is then after the move-in weekend, August 25th and 26th. But graduate students, your orientation is actually a little earlier. So it's August 18th to 20th is a few days sort of dedicated graduation programming, or graduate programming. That being said, for Mac campus, so the orientation for grads August 18th to 20th is for everyone. It's on the downtown campus, but if you're a Mac campus student, if you're a downtown campus student, everyone is invited. There'll be workshops, there'll be a services fair, there'll be a big sort of party with PGSS, the Grad Student Union, but then there'll also be some specific Mac campus events happening on August 26th also. So just to keep that in mind, the day before classes start.
Annie, I'm seeing a question about when we'll learn who our roommates are.
Yes, great question. So you won't actually learn who your roommates are until you move in. So the reasons for that is because housing assignments do change a little bit over the summer because people defer their admission or they request a change. So things are still a little bit fluid over the summer. So you won't find out in advance. It'll be a lovely surprise for when you arrive.
I'll also say that one of the reasons why I picked McGill when I was 18 was because at the time there were predominantly single rooms, and I wanted a single room. And indeed, I was so happy and relieved that I got a single room.
There you go. But I can say, actually, I met my best friend for life as my randomly assigned roommate my first year of university. And we are still like really, really close friends. So you can really get lucky. It's a really great way actually to meet people, whether they be your roommate or just your kind of like, building mate. But it is a great way to meet people.
Annie, I love our contrast.
It's true. It's true. Let's see. Oh, we have a really good question about my courses, which we'd referenced earlier. Someone's asking, the platform where all the content will be posted is on my courses. So when you say all the content for courses, yes. So for your courses, you'll find that a lot of your course documents, as well as assignments, can be posted in my courses. So the question is, how do you create an account? The good news is you don't have to. You already will have one automatically. So if you are an undergraduate student, you can actually already go to McGill My Courses, log in, and you'll actually have a course, a first course to complete called McGill Essentials, which is just like a really big overview of like all the big things to know about McGill, like how to get involved on campus, how does housing work, how do meal plans work, all that good information. So it's a first way just to get used to the platform. It's a course that we've created for you and that you can browse over the summer, just little video capsules to give you all that information. And then everyone, grad students, you also have those kinds of video capsules, but they're actually in the applicant portal on GradHub. So in GradHub, you also have that same kind of information called Grad Life Orientation. And then on my courses, everybody's going to have the academic, what is it called? The academic, oh dear, tutorial. Excuse me, I'm blanking. I haven't had enough coffee yet. What is it called? Basically where you learn about academic integrity. Okay, there you go. The academic integrity tutorial on my courses. And also It Takes All of Us, which is a tutorial on sexual violence. And both of those are required. So those are all ways that you can log into my courses. Those are courses you will need to complete, but you have a little time to do it. They're not due tomorrow. You have until there'll be a deadline communicated for fall semester. But yeah, you can see you already have an account and you can already kind of check out how the platform works by completing those first tutorials.
And if you sign up for the buddy program, there's the training also. Oh no, that's for mentors. Never mind.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Another housing question. When will housing's assignments be released so that I can buy dorm supplies accordingly? Excellent question. So they are being released. I did hear that there was a technical issue that kind of delayed the release for certain residences, but they're working on that and releasing assignments now. So if you haven't already gotten yours, it's on the way. You can also, if you like, reach out to housing services directly. And sometimes they might actually have your assignment already ready. They just weren't able to communicate it to you through the system because of the bug. But it's on its way. Don't panic. Those assignments are being released.
And I will add that, especially for people who are not driving to McGill, so if you're flying, you don't have to preemptively buy things for your dorms. You have plenty of time. And honestly, you might fall in love with the Dollaramas here. There's Dollaramas like on every neighborhood, every street, it seems, where you can buy all your kitchen-y things, cleaning supplies. You don't need to really clean outside your room, but all those things are like $5 and under. I love the Dollarama.
It's true. It's good to know. Close to campus. Let's see. Some other great questions here. Trying to see. How do we register for clubs? That's a great one. So Emily mentioned earlier activities night. So I'll see if I have a link that I can drop for you, but it's coming up very soon, actually. Activities night is happening on September 3rd and 4th this year. So really shortly after orientation and the start of classes, there'll be a 2-day club fair where all the clubs will be out presenting themselves. They'll have a table, like a little booth at this fair. You can go check them all out. And it's a great way to see what's on offer and register. But you can also browse the SMU website. So
or
I'm
PGS,
going to
PGS.
Well, the clubs are mostly under SMU and are available for graduate students as well. But it's true that PGSS, you can check, that's the grad student union. There are some additional, obviously, involvement opportunities with PGSS. They do a lot of great things for grads. And for grad students, it's good to know that you also have like Thompson House, this dedicated grad student house that's your private space. So that's very fun to, they have a lot of events and things going on there.
And if I can go down my own memory lane, I remember first year, or maybe second year, I went to activities night and I just signed up for everything. And then whoever followed up with me, I was like, oh yeah, I'll look into that. And then that's how I ended up getting involved for 4 years and being on the exec of the youth outreach program. And yeah, I just signed up for everything. And whoever contacted me, those are the things I got involved with.
Yes. Okay, so I just put the link in the person who asked the question. So the date of activities night and also the page where you can go browse all of the over 200 clubs that are available for you to sign up for at McGill. Let's see. I registered for courses. Next question. It didn't ask me to pay. Should I pay for registration while my admission is funded? Great question. You won't get your first e-bill. It's normal you haven't been charged yet. You won't get your first e-bill until August 1st. So depending on your type of funding, I don't want to misspeak, so I don't want to say exactly how your funding will be applied, but you may see that reflected in your e-bill. Otherwise, you can reach out to, I'm assuming you're a graduate student, perhaps. If you are, you can reach out to GPS about questions about your funding. If you're an undergraduate student, you can reach out to our colleagues at Scholarships and Student Aid if you have questions about your funding and how it will appear and be reflected in your e-bill. So I'll just put those links here. let's see, scholarships and student aid, and then also, let's see. And let's see, I'm also putting in the link to graduate funding if you're a graduate student.
I see your question. Where do we sign up for courses and how do we know we're choosing classes required of our majors? Am I correct that you still sign up through Minerva?
Yes, that is correct. Oh.
Yeah. And then regarding your majors, much of the information is online, like the required courses, but also at the faculty orientation, the faculty advisors can also tell you if you're taking the right prerequisites for what comes next, if you're in doubt.
That's true. And actually there's a new sort of platform that's been released this year, which is the course calendar. Course catalog. Let me just link that here. You can actually go into the course catalog, choose your chosen major, and it'll show you all of the courses that you should take for that major. So this is one link that applies to anyone kind of regardless of your program. But as Emily said, also your faculty, often they'll have like really clear guides on their website. I'll also link
yeah, but the course calendar is the main, it would know. The course calendar is what to follow.
Yes,
I remember I used to get that in the big book. I see one more question here in review. Someone is they're lost on Minerva and they can't find their program. It's multilingual digital communications. In this case, I'd probably reach out to your program. In some McGill web pages, the courses of that program are not even offered these coming terms. And boy, is that frustrating when that happens. However, I think if you can't find sort of your specialized program, I would probably reach out to the program director or the graduate student director for that program. Annie, you're welcome to chime in more.
I'm sorry, I was popping in links and I didn't catch all of what you said.
Someone's it's a graduate student, it looks like, lost within Minerva, can't find their program, multilingual digital communications non-thesis.
Okay. Yeah, I would recommend if you have your contact from GPS, I'll actually pop an email into an email address you could reach out to.
Lovely. We are now at 10:59. This week, these were some lovely questions, and we're glad that everyone has joined us. Annie, do you have any more questions that you can see?
Let me see. A question about housing availability. I would say any questions about housing availability or assignments, you can go directly to our colleagues at Housing and Hospitality Services to ask those questions. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of visibility ourselves, Emily and I, but I'll just pop the contact information quickly here.
I just had it up. Although I don't see the question, so I'll let you put it to the appropriate question.
Okay, got it. Let's see. What are the policies on additional costs for courses taken on top of the credit requirement for a particular degree? So your charge, basically your e-bill that you get is based on your credit load. So I'm not aware of any policies that are required versus not required courses, but you'll just be billed basically by your credit load. So that hopefully can answer that question.
If I can add, for international students, you must be enrolled in 12 credits so that you don't fall below a full-time course load. That's for undergraduate students. And 15 is the norm. If you take more credits, you'll be charged for more credits. What I will say, though, just one little shout out for the French Language Center is if you do take courses in the French Language Center, those classes will be billed to you at the Canadian tuition rate, not the international student rate for those credits. So if you take 3 credits of French, those 3 credits will be billed to you at the Canadian tuition rate, which is a lovely perk.
That is. And I think that's all of our questions. I think we've answered them all.
Well, thank you, Annie and Clay, for hosting.
And thank you, Emily, for presenting. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. It was great getting to spend a little time with you this morning. And we're really excited to see you on campus for orientation and this fall. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. And we look forward to seeing you at future webinars this summer. Have a great day.
Bye.